Claire woke to a silence that seemed to press against her mind, dense and unyielding, like fog settling on a window pane. The house felt heavier than usual, a quiet that was soft yet impossible to ignore. Daniel had left before dawn, headed to a conference in Chicago. And even though Claire understood his work, supported him endlessly, and had grown accustomed to his frequent absences, a small ache lingered where his presence usually was. Without his laughter echoing through the rooms, the space felt colder, emptier. She moved briskly through the house, opening the curtains, straightening cushions, flicking on soft background music she rarely listened to, and wiping down counters that were already spotless. It was all a way to keep the loneliness from taking root. Outside, the rain fell steadily, tapping the windows, a reminder of the stillness inside. Claire told herself she was overreacting, that she was simply being dramatic. Yet she couldn't deny the unease that quiet always brought her, especially when it filled the spaces where someone she loved belonged. She tried baking, hoping the scent of cinnamon would animate the rooms, but even as she stirred the batter, her thoughts drifted to Daniel, the squeeze of his hand before leaving, the promise he'd call once he reached the hotel. She checked her phone twice, though she knew he was likely still in transit. When the muffins were done, she couldn't eat more than a single bite. Silence crept back in, stretching into corners she tried to avoid. She wandered into the hallway, letting her fingers trace the shelves, and paused at a closet door she hadn't opened in years. Maybe it was the rain or the tug of old memories, or simply a restless curiosity, but she reached for the handle and pulled. Inside, beneath a pile of coats and long-forgotten holiday decorations, sat a small wooden box she recognized instantly. Her breath caught. It was familiar in a way that felt almost intimate, like an old friend appearing unexpectedly. She lifted it out carefully, dust swirling around her as she lowered herself to the floor to set it down. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from a quiet recognition. The box contained a fragment of her past, a carefully tucked away moment of the life she had chosen with Daniel. She opened it without hesitation. Letters with faded ink, photographs curling at the edges, and a small silver pendant, long unworn, rested inside. Everything looked as she had left it years ago, softened only by the passage of time. Claire picked up a photograph, and a rush of memory made her chest tighten. It was her 10 years younger, caught mid-laugh, eyes bright and filled with a hope she barely remembered. Beneath it lay letters penned in a familiar handwriting she hadn't seen in nearly a decade. She traced the envelope with her thumb, not opening it, just feeling the echo of the person she had been when she first read those words. Memories were strange, warm, yet distant, like an old song remembered only when it surfaces unexpectedly. She wasn't yearning for the past. Not exactly. Yet holding these pieces of herself stirred something deep inside, as if the girl she had been was tapping her shoulder, reminding her of dreams once vivid and unbound. A whisper escaped her lips, barely audible. Why now? Not for the box or the letters, but for herself. Why had she reached for this today? Why did her heart feel caught between comfort and curiosity? No answer came, and perhaps none was needed. The rain drummed harder against the windows, steady and insistent, mirroring the rhythm of her thoughts. Before she could close the box, the doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected, pulling her from her reverie. Startled, she wiped her hands on her jeans and approached the door, curiosity racing through her more than fear. Who could be visiting on such a rainy afternoon, unannounced? The bell rang again, urgent this time, and Claire's pulse quickened. She placed the wooden box on the hallway table and opened the door, sensing that whatever awaited would alter the day in a way she could not yet predict. Outside, drenched from the drizzle, stood Evan. His hair clung to his forehead, eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and hesitation. She hadn't seen him in nearly 10 years, not since she had told him she was marrying Daniel. The sight of him brought a strange warmth and tension to her chest. He smiled awkwardly, brushing water from his jacket, and spoke her name softly, as though testing the reality of the moment. "Claire," he said, his voice the same reassuring tone she remembered, the one that had once made her feel seen. She blinked, unsure whether to invite him in or step back, and then, with a small inhale, asked him to come inside before catching a cold. The house, already quiet, seemed to grow stiller with his presence. They moved to the living room, Evan shaking off raindrops, while Claire placed 2 steaming mugs of tea on the table. Conversation began cautiously tentative, each word chosen carefully, testing the waters after so many years. Gradually, the old rhythm returned, the laughter, the shared memories, the small adventures that had once formed a bond she thought unbreakable. Claire noticed how familiar it felt to sit across from him, how his presence seemed to evoke a version of herself she had nearly forgotten, youthful, spontaneous, unburdened by routine or responsibility. Evan glanced around, noticing the neat arrangement of furniture, the personal touches that made the house feel alive. "Daniel's away this week?" he asked, simple, direct, yet it cut through the careful composure she had maintained. She nodded, confessing the emptiness that had occupied the house in his absence. His eyes softened, reflecting the boy who had once shared dreams with her, who had listened to her secrets, who had known the depth of her laughter and sorrow. Then Evan's gaze fell on the open wooden box on the table. Recognition flickered in his expression, nostalgia passing through his eyes. "You kept those?" he asked softly. The weight of the past settled around them, unspoken yet palpable. Claire admitted she hadn't planned to open it today. It had simply happened. Evan handled the letter carefully, respectful of the delicate balance between memory and the present. The photographs, letters, and pendants seemed to pulse quietly, alive again. They were not mere reminders, but bridges to a chapter of her life she had carefully tucked away, a younger self, free and untamed, who had laughed without caution and dreamed without limits. Evan didn't press for explanations or apologies. He sat beside her, allowing the quiet to linger, a witness to the emotions Claire had buried for years. The storm outside intensified, echoing the rapid rhythm of her thoughts. Time stretched in the living room, suspended between memory and reality, each glance and word charged with significance. When Evan finally rose to leave, the air shimmered with unspoken emotions felt deeply, but unnamed. Claire accompanied him to the door, a quiet tension humming between them. She thanked him for coming, for reminding her of the girl she had once been, the person who dreamed, laughed, and loved without boundaries. He smiled softly, bittersweet, and stepped into the rain, leaving Claire with the wooden box and a strange warmth that neither time nor distance could erase. The air after the rain carried the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves, crisp and grounding. Claire cracked open a window, allowing a soft breeze to drift into the room. For the first time that day, she felt entirely present-centered, whole, and ready for whatever came next. Her thoughts briefly lingered on Evan, not with yearning or regret, but with gratitude for the reminder of who she had once been, and for the journey that had led her to the love she now shared with Daniel. She understood in that quiet moment that looking back at the past didn't mean choosing it over her present. Instead, it was about recognizing it, learning from it, and letting those memories reinforce the life and love she had nurtured. The wooden box resting on the shelf no longer symbolized unresolved emotions or lingering what-ifs. It had become a testament to growth, a quiet anchor that preserved the past without disrupting her peace. As evening settled in, Claire began preparing the house for Daniel's return. She adjusted small details that would make him feel welcomed, noticed and missed the kind of subtle touches that carried more meaning than words. The time apart had deepened her appreciation for the rhythm of their life together. His voice, his laughter, the comfort of his presence. She lit a candle, poured herself a steaming cup of tea, and positioned herself by the window, watching the last droplets of rain slide lazily down the glass. Her heart was calm, content, and quietly happy. In the stillness, she realized that love wasn't solely about passion or fleeting excitement. It was about patient, enduring commitment, the kind that made life feel rich. Textured and profoundly meaningful dot in Daniel's absence, Claire had chosen not to dwell on longing or emptiness, but to revisit her own memories, to confront and understand her feelings. She returned to the present stronger, more certain, and more aware of the love she had built. The quiet reflection had allowed her to honor the past without letting it overshadow the life she had carefully created. That night, as she turned off the lights and slipped into bed, a gentle sense of joy settled over her. She recognized that the past and present could coexist harmoniously, that reflection could deepen love rather than diminish it, and that her heart, expansive and resilient, had room for memory, gratitude, and the life she cherished most. The storm outside had passed, leaving the world washed clean, just as a quiet clarity had settled within her. She felt ready to face tomorrow, to welcome Daniel back, to embrace the familiar rhythms of her life, and to live fully in the present she had chosen. In that quiet, reflective evening, she understood something essential. Honoring the past did not threaten the present, and loving deeply did not require hesitation. She allowed herself to feel both the weight and the lightness of memory, appreciating how it enriched rather than constrained her. Every heartbeat, every inhalation of the cool, rain-scented air reminded her that life was made up of layers moments, choices, people, and experiences that together shaped who she was. Claire's gaze drifted to the wooden box again, now resting safely on the high shelf. It no longer pulled at her or tempted her curiosity. It simply existed, a quiet testament to a chapter of life she had lived fully, now safely folded into her story. She smiled softly, recognizing the balance she had achieved. Reflection had not pulled her backward. It had allowed her to move forward with clarity, gratitude, and a deepened appreciation for her present. With Daniel's return imminent, she felt a calm anticipation, a serene certainty that her love, grounded in understanding and commitment, could weather any absence. She felt ready to greet him, ready to share her heart openly, and ready to continue building the life they had chosen together. The night deepened, and the house exhaled with her. No longer hollow, no longer suffocating with unspoken tension, it felt alive with the quiet pulse of comfort and contentment. Claire placed her tea aside and lingered by the window for a final moment, savoring the peaceful hush that filled the air. Every corner of the room seemed to radiate the quiet truth she had discovered, that love was strengthened, not weakened, by reflection. That the past, honored but not clung to, could enhance the richness of the present, and that her heart, resilient and expansive, was capable of holding both memory and devotion, past and present, all at once. As she finally moved to bed, Claire felt a deep, steady joy. The rain had ceased entirely, leaving behind the gentle scent of the world renewed. She closed her eyes, letting the serenity of the moment wash over her, aware that she had faced the subtle storms of emotion with grace and emerged grounded and confident. The wooden box, the letters, the photographs, they were no longer a temptation or a burden, but a gentle reminder of the journey she had traveled, the woman she had become, and the love she had chosen. And in that quiet, perfectly balanced moment, Claire finally felt fully herself, ready for tomorrow, ready for Daniel, and ready to continue living a life built on reflection, gratitude, and enduring love.